let's look at importing a project from mbed.com into a folder and open it in Keil. So I've got my project selected here. This is one I created specially, and it's got all the sort of libraries and folders that we need. And for example, this is the BMP 280 folder. If you wish, you can convert this to a simple folder, which means you'll get an independent copy with your project. You might find that makes things a little simpler. I'm not going to actually bother for mine because I share these libraries with lots of projects. So the first thing you need to do is go to the Summary tab and click Publish. Hang on a minute, I clicked the wrong one. Publish. Now that's first of all going to require you to commit a version into version control. And what it's asking me now when I publish it is, do I want to push this exact version, or do I want to make an independent copy? For my purposes, I'm going to fork this into an independent copy. Write a comment in here, so version for DLE if you like. Give it a name that you want to call it. I'm going to publish to my own account and privately so that I don't share this with the whole world. Otherwise you're giving away your code to everyone. And click OK. Now it might keep asking you those questions and you keep doing the same thing. So if it asks if you want to fork, click fork, so you get an independent copy. Okay, so that's done, and that now has a URL, and there it is. So I'm going to copy this into my clipboard. You can also get it from up here. Alright, so that's done. It's now published. So I can access that now from this folder. I'm in my temp folder. I'm going to go simply embed, import, and I'm going to put in that URL. Now, because it's in my repository, it will ask me to log in maybe more than once. So you need to know your embed credentials for this. Okay, and you'll see that the folder's starting to be created now. Now, this is okay if you want to now be able to build for any board from any manufacturer. So it is going to download mbed-os source code for all the possible boards out there. That's going to ask me to log in again. Now we don't want to do that. There we go. Now it's downloading mbed. Now in a minute we're going to remove that folder that it's creating because it's enormous. So as a consequence, this takes quite a while to download. Okay, so now it's pulling down a couple more drivers and we're almost done. There we go. So if we have a look in this folder, we'll see the Elect 350 Export Demo 2 is what I called it. I'm going to go in there. Now I've got my board plugged in. So one of the interesting things you can do is go embed detect. Now notice I've installed the embed command line tools for Windows. I put a link to that in one of my previous posts. So if we type embed detect, that will work out what compilers I've got on the system, or what compilers can be used with my board, more to the point. Now, as I said, this downloads embed source code for everything. So if I wanted to build this with a command line, which you may not want to do, but it's a good thing to be able to know how to do, then I'm going to set this up. So I'm going to go embed -- global. So in other words, this applies to all projects. Tool chain GCC ARM, because I've got that compiler, which is a free compiler, I would add. That comes with the command line tools. When we use Keil, we'll use the ARM compiler, but that doesn't matter. So embed -- global, and we will have target, and it's this one here. It's detected. In fact, it even knows it's on COM port 3, nucleo _ FZ429 CLI. Now what I could do now is immediately create a Keil project, but before I do that I'm going to do a couple more things. I'm going to do embed update to make sure all the drivers up to date. Again, it's nagging me for my password. You should find that everything is pretty much as it should be. I updated it before I exported it. And again, this is optional, by the way. You don't actually have to do this, but I tend to always do it anyway. As you can see, it's checking that I've got the latest version of mbed-os. That moves along quite quickly. Actually, you've got to be careful because you can break your code if they bring out new versions and they deprecate. So you may not want to do this step at the point I did this video. It's all fine. But just want to be aware of. Okay, in industry, you would tend to validate some software against known versions of libraries, and if it checks out and it validates, that's then they stick together. If you discover a bug in something later, then you have to go through the process again. All right. Okay, so that's now done an update, and if I want to build it, like I click build on the web-based IDE, you just go embed compile. And you'll know if your settings are right at this point, because this will now attempt to rebuild the entire project. And actually, yes, it's picked up an error. I've got the wrong version of Python being used. Okay, that's because I've installed something called Anaconda. I will fix that. Actually, I think I might be premature. That looks like it's saying it's the wrong board. Scroll up here, we'll see what the error is. Yes, the okay, I've spelt the name of the board wrong. That's me. Right, so embed -- global target, and then it's always a good thing to copy it from here. So there it is. It's F429, not FZ. So we're going to copy that, and then, sorry, we're going to this terminal for you, and then we're going to paste it there. Right, got the name of the target board right now. So I'm going to go embed compile, and hopefully, assuming everything's been done properly, then yes, that looks good already. So it's now starting to scan through my project and build it. And there's a lot of customization you can do in here, things you can't so easily do from the web tools. So I'm just going to pause the video while it does that, because it takes quite a long time to rebuild the whole project. Okay, when it's finished compiling, what it'll do is it will link it, and it'll create a binary file. And this is the same thing you would drag and drop onto your embed board. So if we have a look in there, so that's the it'll be in the build folder, Nucleo. I've used GCC ARM, and then you should find there's an elect350 export.bin in there. There it is. And I can drag and drop that onto my embed board if I like. So that's kind of what happens, or very similar to what happens probably back end when you use mbed.com. But we have a bit more, well, we have complete control with this process. All right, but that's almost done now. So if we go back to this folder, you'll notice that there's a folder in there called mbed-os, and if we look at the properties of that, that's actually the source code for the operating system. You'll see it's quite big. It's the vast majority of the files in the project. It's 565 megabytes. Now, that is not needed when you upload to the DLE. You need it when you want to build the code. So what I would do is I would zip this, put the zip on your OneDrive, and then delete that folder, and then zip all this up and submit it. But just to prove it works, I want to show you one more thing, and that's how we now make a Keil project. Embed export -i, and it's uvision 5. And that's a very quick operation once it gets going. What it really does is it looks at the project manager for Mbed and builds you a Microvision 5 project file. Well, it's done, and there it is in fact. So if we now double click that, Microvision will run, and there's my code. Now, this is important because this is not something you maybe need to worry about, but if you want to test your code from Keil, Keil is not, with this system, is not necessarily set up quite right. So when we go to the settings, you should find the right devices selected. It is. Okay. However, the debug settings are sometimes a bit out. So the first thing I tend to do, or certainly if you've got USB 2 ports, is drop the speed. Under debug, I always change under reset. Okay, that's that one done. Now to flash download, 2 meg is not big enough. I don't know why that's there. I'm sure there's a way around it. I also change that to reset and run. So I'm going to move that left a digit to 200 meg because you've got plenty of flash. Put a 0 to the right of that 2 and click OK. Right, and now you've got a Keil project. So you can build, and this will now build for the ARM compiler. All right, and again, it's going to take a long time because it's going to now rebuild the whole of Mbed, this time using the ARM compiler. And then we're able to deploy with the usual system. Okay, so that's using Keil. I'm going to stop that because that takes forever. But that is basically it. So remember that this exported project is too big, even when you zip it up, to upload on the DLE. But if you just zip up the mbed-os folder, if you look in there, there's nothing in there that is specific to your project. Okay, that is just the latest version of Mbed in source code. Right, and then remove that folder when you've zipped it, and you'll find it's probably less than a megabyte.